Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Alan Deng and I'll be talking about my experience as a component engineer intern at a defense company. With that said, let's continue with this presentation and talk about the first topic. So the first topic would be, how does one find an internship opportunity? Firstly, in order to take advantage or find opportunities, you need to take advantage of the opportunities sent via Cambrian's email. So Cambrian is a placement and jobs coordinator at Cal State LA for the engineering department. What she'll do is she'll typically send out emails regarding internship opportunities, research opportunities, full-time opportunities, etc. There's a tendency I personally believe that there's not many students so far that have taken these opportunities, and for the students that do take advantage of these opportunities, they're usually rewarded with an instant hire. Obviously, there has to be a formal interview process and a formal application process, but in most cases, the companies are always hiring and will accept students. Secondly, utilize the Cal State LA's handshake profile. A lot of times companies will have their job postings there, and students will be able to apply for those jobs. And typically the job openings are made with the intent that only students are applying. So, for example, the company that I was working with, NGC, what they'll do is they'll have the job opening and a link that you would click on, and from there, it's not their workday application, but it's more of a generalized web page where you submit your general personal information and your resume. And from there, they'll just read your resume and contact you with the information that you provided to have an interview discussion. Lastly, the best way, in my opinion, to obtain an internship or a full-time job right out of graduation would be through conferences. For example, here I listed GMIS. Recently in October, there was a conference in Pasadena that many students have taken advantage of. And in these conferences, many of these students need to have the mindset that companies are there to hire. Companies will have a set quota, a set number of engineers that they need for the following summer or the following fall. And they do the hiring process then, so that once the spring semester has ended, then a lot of the students will immediately begin to work. Notice how I said that they start hiring in the fall, in October. So many companies have the tendency to hire fall, winter, rarely spring, and honestly, by the time many students search during spring, they will not find any opportunities. So it's in the best interest of students to search for jobs or internships early on during the fall semester. However, if a student is a little late to the game and is already in the spring semester, my best advice is to then find other research opportunities or take a class during the summer to boost their overall profile. A few other things to note, to add that I didn't put in the slide. Make sure that the overall story, as a student, you need to make sure that you're catching attentions. Do projects, do researches, anything that shows that you're passionate. From there, hiring managers will love it. They'll give an interview for you to describe your project, and from there maybe a job job will transpire. So for the interview process, the interview wasn't difficult, as the assumption that these hiring managers have is that you're a level one engineer, an associate engineer with no real experience in the industry. So the interviews will purely be behavioral. Um, on the rare offset that they do give you a technical interview question, is typically dependent on the substance on the resume. Okay, so the type of questions would be like, how would you deal with problems as a student? Uh, how would you go about solving these problems? Another interesting question is, how would you go about dealing with a student or a classmate that is difficult to have discussions with, or who is hard to get a hold of? The typical questions uh, where you need to share an experience where you were under an adverse um, event. In terms of technical questions, as an electrical engineer, obviously these questions will be dependent on your specialization. It could either be power, controls, computer engineering, electronics, or even any material in your core classes. So do be aware and do be attentive in your class. Make sure you know your general concepts. They're not going to ask really hard questions similar to like the homework questions or the exam questions in Tabrizi's class, but they'll ask something where you need to answer, give them a general conceptual answer. While you're in the interview, you need to be confident. You need to exude the confidence that you're able to get this job, that you're the type of person that they can depend on, and in addition, that you look like the type of guy that isn't afraid of anything. What I mean by that is, you can't be stuttering, you can't be, having pauses in between your answers, things where it shows that you didn't do enough research. Um, what I like about these companies is that they'll always ask the applicant, what brings you to their company. The interesting thing is, like, you can just do a simple research on the company to see what they do, to see what their current projects are, and then from there you can answer those type of questions. Um, the best thing that I've done to help my interview so far is research your interviewer on LinkedIn. Find their information, do some research about them, ask questions. So for example, a question could be like, so what brings you into this company, and why are you here for 20 years? Why are you so passionate that you're staying here in this company for 20 years? Things. The interview process is not just about you, but it's about them as well. It's a two-sided, two-way street. It's an opportunity for them to learn about you, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for you to learn about the company overall. Yeah, it's great that the company knows you're a great fit for the company, but at the same time, you need to understand that maybe the company is not what it seems like, on the face value. So being able to demystify certain things before you actually enter your first day of work could be helpful. So how is this internship really relevant to the major and or the specialization? As a components engineer, there is some relevancy, although it's not as huge. For a components engineer, being able to understand each component and their capabilities in an overall system design is quite important. Although this is way before the initial planning, the initial design. You're just looking at general components that you can look at for procurement. Sometimes, as a component engineer, you're given a component and you're asked if these meet specific standards, and most of the case, these standards are driven by the customer's requirements, or a contractor's requirement. Um, a few other things to note is that in the most general way, this internship has allowed me to understand further electrical engineering topics in much more relevant or up to date scenarios. So there's times where I would always ask why this, why that, for each course. Why am I learning this? Why am I learning that? And um, by doing this internship, you get to see the why part with new things that you haven't seen in class. Um, Being able to understand why certain methodologies are performed, why certain model simulations are done in this way, and yeah, that's about it. In terms of software or engineering specific software, most of it can be learned on the job. So that's the best thing about these internships. You're using industry level software to work on your job. Yes, like it might not be LabVIEW from 3810, or it might not be MATLAB, but these are all software where they're all fundamentally similar, uh, and it's very easy to learn. But that's about it. Sometimes while you're working on paperwork, there's a lot of times where you see numbers and values, or charts, and from the classes, like being able to understand the axes, the verbiage, and that that's pretty important. One thing that I've heard that was pretty interesting from an engineer is that you know at these companies they can hire anyone, but they'd rather hire an electrical engineer to do the job. Why? Because in the case that software is down, um, engineers are able to interpret, hand calculations and such, whereas someone who doesn't even have the experience might not be able to interpret it. Yes, they can do the math, but the most important part is the interpretation and the analysis of the work. The benefits of the internships are drastic. It's more than the 10 weeks amount of pay that you receive. So being able to work outside of academia, the environment that you're in is way different. So in college, the environment is kind of superficial in the sense that students are accepted based on their academics, other factors such as like the actually no, it's purely just it seems like academics in academia. It's just that a lot of your peers are at the same age, they're probably the same type of they have the same type of culture, but at work everyone is different in the sense that you're not everyone is fresh out of college. Some of your coworkers next to your cubicle are probably in their 40s, 50s, 60s, close to retirement. Some of them are of different culture, religion, etc. So being able to work with people that you have never worked with is a great way to learn and adapt, you know. And sometimes, like, not only that, but there's also times where in school everyone is probably open-minded and curious and eager to have a conversation with one another outside of work. At work, some people might be a little more reserved. Some people are just might be a little difficult to talk to, but these are some of the challenges that we have to learn either way, and the best way to learn it is in a condensed 10-week intern experience. Nextly, while working at this internship, being able to take ownership of the work that was performed, um, understanding that you know the work the work is of an associate level engineer. However, the work in a grand scheme of things is pretty big. The work that you do is part of an ongoing project. That's active. Um, it may have societal impacts for decades to come. So being able to work hard, get it done correctly and on time is a big plus. Obviously, from classes, professors always have a due date for homework. There's a hard deadline. But however, what I found at work was that um, a lot of the managers or the senior engineers have confidence that a lot of the engineers will always get the assignments done. I was never pressured to get an assignment done before a hard deadline. I was given a good amount of time for myself to get it done. Getting it done correctly. But one thing that I found was that I was able to find help. I was able to seek help for my work. Being able to have clarification or misconceptions clarified. So that was a big plus. Thirdly, while I was there working, it was also a great opportunity to network with interns from different schools, from different states, and also being able to network with managers, different managers from different sectors or different offices. And these networks will be very useful in the future. Maybe the friend that you've met through this internship has gotten a job at a different company, and they understand that you might be a good candidate for them, and they'll reach out and get you hired before they consider any other applicants. Also, for job advancement, that's a big deal. Knowing your manager or knowing your other managers can lead to an opportunity to become a manager. There's times where managers will see that as an engineer that this person has developed some kind of leadership skill, developed some trust within the team, taken big responsibilities, in a way being a leader whenever the manager's not there. They'll take note of that. They'll suggest perhaps getting a master's in MBA to become a manager would be ideal. And whenever these managers retire, they usually refer to those people first before giving the job to anyone else. So that's why networking is really, really, really important. And lastly, being able to get offers to come back at this job, depending on what kind of company that you're in. Maybe in defense, for example, you're in an active project, you've been trained. That requires money and resources, and it's in the company's best interest to not let these employees go, because if they do let them go, then they would have to spend a little more money training and approving these new employees to certain projects, and it's better to just have the intern return after their school year to resume on the project. And a lot of times, these companies will always have a 100% success rate in retaining the internship students. sometimes there are cases where the intern might not like the job, and those people will obviously go away. But for the students that are interested in their job, they love the company culture, they love everything about it. Most of the time, they will send a return offer for full time. And funny enough, for me, I'm gonna return to this company post spring 2023. So I'm pretty humble and blessed by this company to by by them giving me this opportunity. But yeah, that's about it for this presentation. So in short, I utilized my summer in 2022 as a component engineer, working in a huge project that I'm not allowed to talk about. But with this internship coming to end this August, I was able to learn what it's like to be a full time engineer, um, picking up the habits, uh, being able to learn how to communicate effectively, work as a team, uh, and yeah. Another thing that I've learned from this internship is that I'm able to become a mentor. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of other friends and classmates who would ask about my experience and want me to share what I've grabbed from this internship. And yeah, while I was mentoring, I was able to talk about what it's like to intern, how to intern. I've discussed how soon to get an internship, why to get an internship, and interestingly, also there are some freshmen who've approached me and asked what it's like to get certain jobs and how to approach these opportunities from their standpoint, and that has been a fulfilling thing to do. Um, this might be quite a long presentation, but I thank you guys for watching and uh, heeding some of these words.